Alright guys, I'm back today. I actually got to run this guy yesterday, and I ran the wad cutters out of it. I think it was something like 20 rounds or 30 rounds of the wad cutters. I ran a bunch of 405s out of it, some 330 grainers. Overall, I mean, they were kind of shooting all over the place because I didn't know where the loads were going to be. I didn't get a chance to chronograph them. And it was kind of like my buddy said to me at the last minute. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to the gun club. You want to come and shoot?" And I'm like, "Well, I haven't been shooting in long enough, so, and I just got this lovely new Marlin, so why not go?" So I was going to wait until I had a little more of a round count through the rifle before I did a tabletop, but I think right now is probably a good time to do it, primarily because I did have an issue with failure to go into battery yesterday. So, you know, you cycle the gun, it loads a new round in, you come up, and the gun would kind of sit right here, and it wouldn't go into battery. If you squeeze the handle, it wouldn't click in like it just did. So right there is technically out of battery. Right there is technically in battery, regardless of where the bolt's at in relation to the breech. It's just how they lock up, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I was having that issue yesterday. I thought it was the gun's fault because it's a new Remington Marlin. I thought for sure it was the gun's fault. I heard of screws working loose and having similar issues. I've heard of a lot of bad things of that nature. Luckily, it was not the gun's fault. I got home, rolled the gun open, took a look down the bore with a little bit of light, and there was unburnt powder in the chamber. Oops. That was my fault. I guess some of my loads with H322 were a little bit light, and I was getting a bunch of unburnt powder in the chamber. I actually noticed it at the muzzle end, like right around the crown. I saw some little green cylinder looking things, and I'm like, man, that sure looks like H322. And I'm looking and looking, and I'm like, there's only a couple pieces. So I finally looked at the chamber, and sure enough, there was enough in there where it would cause an issue, where I would think the rifle wouldn't go into battery. And then I also found these little dimples right here. A couple of pieces of brass. And it was probably the last 10 rounds or so have similar issues. Come on, would you focus? These are dimples. They're not watermarks. That's like a piece of, well, a couple of pieces of powder were sitting in the chamber, and somebody just put pressure on it to empty the brass out, and it fire formed around those pieces. So I think there's, what is there, 7 pieces total here. Some of them weren't bad, and these were the last ones I shot. I believe these were 405 grain bullets, and I was doing a little bit of ladder testing with them. And I really didn't look at accuracy on anything yesterday, except for the wad cutter. Surprisingly, I think it was like 100 yards. I was slamming a 10-inch steel plate at 100 yards of those wad cutters of these. I don't know how accurate they are. I didn't look for grouping or anything. But it was easy enough for me to hit with open sights a 10-inch steel plate at 100. These were shooting like 3 foot low, so I'm pretty sure they're kind of fast in the ladder loading. The brass didn't show any real signs of flattened out primers or like the firing pin, the primer cup flown around the firing pin, or anything crazy that I would be really concerned with. Right now I'm not going to give up my load data because I didn't take enough data from it to see if I'm happy with it. Like, I don't know how fast these are going. I know there's unburnt powder, so I'm sure either the powder's too slow, which H322 is slow. It's either too slow and it's leaving unburnt powder, or I just didn't have enough in there to get a good burn out of it. So I just want to show you guys that before we got into the tabletop on this thing, just to point out, because aside from that, I had absolutely zero issues with this rifle. When we originally went to sight it in, as far as windage goes, it was dead nuts perfect. Like, you couldn't ask for any better adjustment as far as windage on the sights. Elevation, it was like a click off, but that could have been because of my hand loads. Like all my hand loads shot different elevations, so I would blame that on hand loads versus the rifle. As far as a lot of people are saying with these new Marlins, like fit and finish wise, like some of the furniture they're saying isn't that great. The only thing I noticed that might be of some concern is, where's that? Like down here, there's a tiny gap, and you can't even see it on the video. So it's, you know, why even bother complaining about that stuff? The loading gate has a little bit of a sharp edge, but you would kind of expect that with stamped parts, especially mass-produced stamped parts. I wouldn't expect them to take the time to break every single edge on the thing. Yeah, they'll deburr it, but deburring and breaking an edge are usually two different things. Or at least that's how I was told it in the machine shops when I worked in machine shops. As far as like cycling the action and fit and finish of the action, I think it worked good. Every time, like I put up the coffee chat with the one shot, or the not one shot, me cycling the wad cutters through the rifle, and I had the first one choke. When I ran the wad cutters yesterday, I didn't have a single issue running those wad cutters from a standing position, shooting standing. It fed every single one of them, and they shot great. So I'm definitely going to keep shooting those wad cutters and see what I can get out of them. As far as like the sights, it's just standard buckhorn sights, nothing crazy. It's got this hood on the front sight, which I'm not real crazy about, but it's, you know, it's not that bad. Didn't have a problem really loading anything into the magazine tube or feeding out of the tube. Didn't have any firing issues. Me and actually 3 other people shot the rifle yesterday, and everyone could shoot it well and hit stuff with it. Didn't have an issue with it. It's not real crazy on recoil with the loads I was using, especially with the 175 wad cutters. They were very nice to shoot. The 405s, even like the hot 405s I loaded up, they weren't that abusive, to be honest with you. I mean, it could be a lot to do with that really thick rubber recoil pad, but I thought it was actually very pleasant to shoot. A lot of like the bolt parts and everything, I'm not seeing any real wear on them yet. Like the wear on the hammer itself, it's very even. Everything looks like it was fit pretty well. The wear on the bolt that I've seen so far is very even. You gotta remember, moving parts are gonna wear. You want to look at the wear patterns versus how much wear is there. If there's peening or grooves or something of that nature, that's different. But light wear, like surface abrasion, I'll call it, so long as it's even and distributed across the bearing surface that they've provided, that's fine. So for instance, let's say like this wear mark right here, which probably you won't be able to see on the camera. There's a wear mark here, and it's the bearing journal back here. So when you go in the lockup, this locking lug pushes up on that, and it pushes that into a bearing journal. So long as that bearing journal is even and the wear looks even on that, then it's fine. So the bluing all looks good. All that, honestly, everything looks good. I came home and I had to make a special screwdriver from a Craftsman screwdriver. I had to file the tip down. I really dislike this camera. I had to file the tip down and get it to the, come on you. Well, it's not going to focus. But it was literally, I filed this screwdriver down so it would work as a well-fit screwdriver to the flathead screws on this. And it fits well, and it doesn't damage the screws. And I just lightly turned all the screws to see if any were loose. This screw for the lever handle was slightly loose, and this back screw here was barely loose. I don't know what they torqued them to at the factory, so yeah, I don't know. These two were just barely loose also. Nothing crazy, like they weren't backing out or falling out or causing issues. Not like everyone says with the new Marlins. Maybe I got extremely lucky and got 1 in 1,000, but I really think this is a well-built rifle, and I think it's a good shooter. I slugged the bore, and actually the bore slugged at 4.575. So it's a pretty good bore in my opinion. If you slug 4.575, it's pretty good. Me being cheap, I already melted my slug back down, but I'm planning on re-slugging it at some point. As far as leading goes, there was 0 leading from anything I shot yesterday. Now, granted, everything I shot was gas checked, but all my gas checks I was noticing when I was shooting, because those are the ones that I annealed in another video because they were spinning on the base. Those gas checks were actually flying off in flight. One of my buddies noticed it, and he took the rifle and took a couple shots while I watched, and you could see the gas check fly off to the side or fly off to wherever after it left the bore. So at least I got rid of the ones that had bad gas checks on them. So now everything I put in here is going to be with the annealed gas checks that are on the base tight, so I won't be having that issue, which is also another reason why I wasn't too worried about accuracy yesterday, because they were all originally loaded when the gas checks were a little loose, so I wasn't confident that they would shoot well because of that anyway. Aside from that, like, I haven't even taken the bolt out of this rifle. I haven't taken the handle off, taken the bolt out. I'm going to run it like it is. I bought it. I ran a one patch down the bore. It was clean, and I oiled it up real light. It already had like rum oil or something, whatever they put on there from the factory on it. It wasn't like an assembly lube. I didn't see dirt in it, so I let it run. I use this Seal 1 CLP right now because I'm trying to get rid of it. It's kind of thin, and as it warms up, it really turns into a liquid, so I don't like its ability to stay put. Even when it's cold, you cycle the action 10-15 times. You know, you even between loading it and cycling the action, you run 15 rounds through it with the heat it puts in the rifle. It kind of just turns into a wooder and runs wherever. It doesn't stay. So I'm trying to get rid of this stuff as much as I can. I've been using it on like my press and other stuff not gun related just to get rid of it because I'm too cheap to not use it. So that, overall, the Marlin I thought was great. Hopefully in the next couple weeks I'll get a video of shooting. Now, the Kimber. I also shot this yesterday. And this shot very well. Didn't have a single problem. The first couple of loads I ran through this Kimber were with arms core ammo, and it kept not wanting to go in the battery. So if this is battery, let me do it this way actually. If this is battery, it would come up and it would kind of lock up like right there. It wouldn't go into battery. You always had to bump the slide in. The loads were light. I kind of gave it to that. Ran a bunch of Remington through it yesterday with absolutely 0 issues. I haven't actually even cleaned this gun. So what we're going to do is make sure it's clear. I did run, I think, like 180 rounds or almost 200 rounds of cast through it yesterday. So make sure it's clear. I also originally had a problem with this gun where the guide rod, it's a 2-piece guide rod, and the guide rod was actually starting to unscrew on me. So I took that apart. I cleaned everything out with brake cleaner. Got it as clean as I could, and I thread locked it back on. And even with blue thread locker, I marked it yesterday. Even with blue thread locker, it still worked its way loose again. Son of a gun, man. I don't want to red Loctite it because I want to be able to get this thing apart if I need to. Well, that sucks. Alright, well, at least I know. As soon as I saw that gap, as soon as I pulled it apart, because I did mark the front of it too. I put a little Sharpie line down it, and that worked its way loose. So these come apart more or less like every 1911. This is my first 1911, so I mean, it's dirty, but I don't see. It's hard to see though. That's really hard to see. Do I have my flashlight in here? Nope, I do not. Oh, sorry guys, I don't have my flashlight in here. Well, I guess that's not too bad. I mean, it's dirty, but usually I'll look at the muzzle end for any types of leading. And, I mean, there's normal stuff there on the lands, but nothing crazy. I mean, overall, it's not a bad deal, to me at least. Now, I'm not a huge gun cleaner person. I want to make sure the gun's going to run, even if it's not well maintained. If it doesn't run for me while it's not well maintained, I generally don't want it. I want to be able to run 1,000 rounds through a gun without having to clean it, if possible. Now, a lot of tight guns like these, well, these aren't tight, but, you know, a lot of these mass-produced guns that are tighter than normal, you'll sometimes choke on that, but I'm hoping it'll work for me because I really do like this 1911. But we shall see. I just wanted to do a quick tabletop on these. Overall, I don't think they're that bad. There's not much wear going on this 1911. Like, look at the rails and all that stuff. The rails look pretty well. They don't look all that bad. Overall, I think it's you know, both of these guns are pretty good. I don't have a problem with either of them yet. I think this one I ran like 250 or so-ish through it yesterday. And the Marlin, I'm almost positive it was like almost, I gotta count the brass. I think it was like 170 total or something around there. So, but I figured tabletop it. Hopefully I'll get out to shoot within the next 2 or 3 weeks. I just sent off more paperwork for my range membership. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe I'll be able to get videos, maybe not. Hopefully. So stick with me and I'll try and keep you guys updated.